Hello there gorgeous gamers, and welcome back to Pure Play TV, and we've got another review for you, and this one is for DARQ Complete Edition, a bundling of the original game and its DLC for PS5, Xbox Series XS and Nintendo Switch, with the PS5 and Series XS versions getting some nice next-gen enhancements. But is this spooky nightmare worth playing through, or should you pass it by in favour of something else? Watch on and find out, because that's how reviews work. Let's get to it. DARQ Complete Edition is a fairly priced bundle that packages in the main game and its DLCs. That right there is the first plus for the game. It's fairly priced, and the publisher isn't trying to mooch into your wallet for an extra tenner. Activision. If you've played DARQ before, then you know what's going on and what to expect. You're just here to find out if it looks and runs any better on PS5. Yes, it does. If, like me, you're a newcomer to the creepy thriller, you're in for a puzzling treat, but not much more. DARQ looks and feels like a horror game. Lloyd, the bald lad you play as, goes to bed and enters a surreal nightmare where he's aware that he's dreaming, or nightmaring. His dreams aren't filled with bunnies and superheroes, instead his dreams are nightmares, full of puzzles and strange creatures. I expected to be scared senseless, but I wasn't, ever. Well, there was one devilish puzzle that did get me a little nervous, but aside from that, there's no genuine horror here. It's more odd imagery and suggestions, rather than in-your-face scares. Though the game does try to pull a fast one every now and then with a quick jump scare. They never worked, at least not for me. If you're here for the horror, you won't find it. But you will find one of the smartest puzzle games around, and that there is no exaggeration. The game hangs its hat on the idea of dreams being illogical, but grounded in some kind of reality. So when I found an old wristwatch when exploring an early level, I thought nothing of it. I assumed it would be used in some mundane way. It turned out that the normal sized wristwatch could actually be used to bridge a 6-foot gap for Lloyd the cue ball to walk over. DARQ is full of these oddities, and once you loosen up and start buying into the idea that you're playing a dream, you'll find the puzzles open up a lot more too, and they become easier for it. That said, there are some brain teasers, and during the 3.5 hour runtime of the main game, I spent a good 45 minutes on the penultimate level, my least favourite of them all because of one bloody puzzle. Puzzles revolve around going back and forth, collecting items, using items and shifting the level around by pulling levers. Oh, and because Lloyd is having a sleep, he can walk up the walls. This is central to the game actually, because solving many of the puzzles requires you to think outside the box. If you can't go forward by walking straight, maybe try going up the wall. That's a lesson the game hammers home early on with its first puzzle, and from there it all clicked for me. I never assumed from that moment that walking from left to right would be the simple solution, though sometimes it actually was. Most of the puzzles can be solved by brute forcing your way through them. If you explore every available area and interact with every item and try to use every item where items can be used, you will hit the end eventually. The puzzles aren't overly obtuse, and a little bit of lateral thinking does work, even in this monochrome dreamland. There's no story to speak of in DARQ, it's just Lloyd and his nightmares, but there are suggestions that he's not a very well kid. For one, he's thin as a rake and bald, which is never considered a picture of fine health. Then there are the enemies, which are manifested in his own head. They're deformed and sometimes they're in wheelchairs, suggesting that they are patients. And maybe that Lloyd himself is a patient, and that his dreams are actually taking place within dreams. I think there's a name for that. The game's enemies are the only real downside to what is otherwise a really good puzzle game. You don't come across many enemies, and you certainly don't lay the beat down on them. Poor Lloyd doesn't look like he could hold down a meal, never mind wielding a weapon. Stealth is your only weapon, and it's really quite poor. It typically boils down to hiding in a small outlet or clambering above while an enemy shifts by. Then drop down or pop out and be on your not so merry way. They're mostly inoffensive and don't do much wrong, but there is one particular enemy that I wish I could scrub from existence, and it's the reason I spent so long on the second to last level. There's a person with a trombone for a head sitting in a wheelchair, slowly shifting from one side of the area to the other. I love the imagery and the idea of the trombone providing a bit of music while also pushing this poor digital cripple along, but I had to go back and forth in this area a few times. Mostly because I didn't know what I was doing, which is fair enough, but I won't be the only one who sits through this tedious section and wishes it wasn't there. I'm not saying the game needed combat, but I don't think it needed these obstacles. I wouldn't have found the game any worse if they weren't in it. But I get the idea, and maybe it's something that can be solved in a sequel. And I really do hope there is a sequel, because DARQ Complete Edition is a genuinely good puzzle game that's only blemish is its enemies. If you already own the game on PS4 or Xbox One, you'll get this updated version for free, and it runs really well and it looks great, or at least as great as a game of this style can look. And I would say, yeah, it's worth a second look, even if it's just to get through the extra content. If you're fresh to DARQ, enjoy it, but be warned that there are some annoying moments with poorly thought out enemies and a few puzzles that don't quite stick the landing. But in all, a decent game, and one that I'm a little bit annoyed that I missed the first time around. Well, I suppose at least I'm getting the best version of it now, so that's something. And that is the end of this review. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, do us a favour and hit the like and subscribe buttons below, as well as the bell icon so that you're notified whenever we've got new stuff. Check the info box for our social media links, websites and our supporters page where you can support the team if you can. I've been Chris, happy dreams and adios amigos. Until next time, bye bye.